Welcome to the Matt Byron Show, guys. Matt Byron here. I'm really excited today to bring my friend Michael Caggiano on our show. I've been trying to set this interview for a while, and I'm so amped to have him today. To give you a little background on Caggiano, he is the creator of Section 8 Secrets. He is also the managing partner at Section 8 Secrets, and we'll get more into that in a minute here. Caggiano is originally from Maine, and he came from a struggling middle class background. He enjoyed sports while he was a kid, and he played baseball while he was in college. He purchased his first condo in 2005, and after graduating, he's been a landlord ever since. So he's bought and sold 11 properties and currently owns 8. And he's rented properties on the private market to executive people, as well as Section 8 rentals. He is married and has 3 kids and lives in North Carolina. And he's been a Section 8 landlord since 2007, while maintaining his career in corporate America as an HR director. Caggiano, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. And that's a good summary there of life in the past.
Let's talk about your first property here. What was your first property like? How did you become interested in real estate investing? What was it like?
Yeah, so I did a internship my senior year in college, and it was at MBNA America, and I was a credit analyst. So I started looking and understanding credit a little bit more. And shortly thereafter, a friend of mine was working at a mortgage company as well. So I graduated, stayed at MBNA a little bit, and gained some exposure to credit and understanding that, and then went and joined a mortgage company during the heydays of no doc loans, magic marker loans, and all the chaos that we know now from mortgage-backed security fraud and all the chaos that was going on there. And so was able to understand financially what goes on with mortgages though, and how they work. So then I can confidently buy. So I practiced what I preached. And shortly after, about maybe 6 months in the mortgage game, I bought my first place. So that was as you said, in 2005, and quickly found that being a landlord is, it has some cumbersome past to it. But when I was living in it and renting it out, it made it so my cost of living was like $200. And I was like, I mean, I got to figure out a way to scale this and repeat this. But for the time being, I was happy. I was living a good life, and I was only like $200 my cost of housing, which was pretty awesome.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And talk to us about your first property here. A lot of people, they inherit money when they're buying their first property. Did your family give you that down payment, or how did you come up with the cash to buy it?
Yeah, so that's a funny one. And what I ended up doing, no, I didn't have any resources for money, and I'm 6 months out of college at this point, and I had college debt to pay, right? I mean, that wasn't paid for me either. But I also understood the value of time and the value of putting your money to work. And the longer you put your money to work, the better off you'll be in the long term. And that comes from just my background in finance and looking at credits and things like that. So I did take a little bit of a risk, and what I did was take a cash advance out on a credit card. So
Wow.
working at MBNA America, I understood like, hey, how this works. And I did a cash advance. It was 24 months at 0%. So it was like free money. And that was my down payment money. And yeah, that's how I did it.
That's wild. And so talk to us more about your down payment too. I think you enrolled in the FHA program. Is that right?
Yeah, huge advantage, right? If you understand, and being in mortgages, I knew what I could leverage. And at the time, FHAs, now this is going to date me, obviously, because this is an '05. And some of the parameters have changed drastically. But yeah, there was a huge advantage because the down payment was 3.5%. I also got a little break on the interest rate. And at the time, I mean, we think what's funny is right now, 7%, we think that's insanely high. It's all relative to what you're used to, though.
Right.
And we were used to 2 years ago being in the 2s and 3s and 4s. But yeah, I got a 6.5% interest rate, which was a break for an FHA. I think most of the loans were going at like maybe 6.8 to 6.825 to 7%. So yeah, I did an FHA 3.5% down, break on the interest rate, had a little bit of PMI, but knew I needed that 3.5% because I couldn't come up with 5 or 10 or 15% down.
And yeah. I think this is a key thing too, is that a lot of people think that when you buy a property, you need to have 20% down. But in your case here, you bought a property that's 3.5% down, right? So you've got massive leverage. Are there any other caveats to the FHA program? How come you're able to buy a property with so little money down?
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the key, guys, like to listeners to understand that it's not an investment, it's a primary principal residence. So you could likely get away if you have a good FICO score, even now, even in today's day, at 5 in likely 10%, almost definitely 10%. But you could probably find a primary principal option for yourself if you're going to live in it. That's primary principal, conventional Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac conforming loan at 5% down. You could still find that. It doesn't have to be FHA. But yeah, that's how you do it. If you're going to live in it, it's easy at that point to put less down. It's when you're going to look for conforming financing and it's an investment. Typically, the minimum you're going to find is 20% down if you're going conforming Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Or if you're doing a hard money loan and you don't mind a really high interest rate, you could probably get away with like 7 to 10% down. That is an option. And we have alternative financing in my training that I talk about. But yeah, likely you're looking 20% if it's investment, 5 to 10% if it's a primary principal.
And so this is a key thing here is that when you're buying a property with that like that, and you're putting such a small down payment down, it needs to be owner occupied for like the first year, I think it is, right? The first year or
yeah, and I talk to banks, and honestly, that's if you're worried if they're going to check. I'm not promoting like fraud or anything like that, but in all honesty, yeah, if you live in it 6 months, you're likely good, and you could always ask, for forgiveness later, I suppose. But I've never been checked. I'll be honest, but also I've never been checked, but I've also never been in the wrong. I at one point had 4 primary principal resident loans, and that was a huge advantage to me, and they were all legitimate. They were all legitimate ones because when you move out and you rent that unit out that you just lived in for a year or two, you could leave the mortgage alone. You don't have to refinance when you move out because it's no longer a primary residence. It still stays. It stays. And I'm a huge fan of 30-year rate fixed because, guys, listeners, if you ever are in a situation where you're like, oh, but interest rates are so high, well, cool, but don't worry about it because what if they're not that high as you think and you didn't predict the future correctly and they actually keep going up? Because some statistics and data might show you these rates right now might be the lowest we see for a decade, believe it or not. I know it seems insane to say that, but there is a chance, right? So if you're in a rate now that you get 30-year fixed, you could always refi. If rates plummet and you're like, oh my God, I wish I didn't get the 30-year fixed, just refi. It's call it maybe $2,000 in closing costs to refi out of that, but hopefully it's worth it. If you're refining for, maybe 3/4 of a point to a point, it's usually worth it.
And so it sounds like, Caggiano, you're saying that people should not be trying to time the market as far as interest rates go or as far as the property values go. They should just jump in. Is that correct? So I understand this right?
Yeah, if you're well prepared, and I always say well prepared, meaning you have an application process. If you're looking to be an investor, you understand the financial fundamentals of real estate investing in general. So I want to make sure that you do understand the numbers and you understand what you're looking for, and you have an application process ready to go, and you have some funds on the sideline that you can deploy out to acquire a property. Do not wait, right? And there's the adage of buy real estate and wait. Don't wait to buy real estate. I truly believe that. You're not going to look back in 3 to 5 years and say, damn, I wish I waited to buy this house. Because why? Because you're going to have already reaped the benefit in cash flow, likely in principal pay down. Of course, you're going to have principal pay down and likely appreciation, despite whatever the economy is doing. If you're buying in the right areas and you've done your homework, you're not going to look back and say, damn, I wish I waited to buy. Because what would you been waiting for? For prices or for price to go down or for interest rates to go down? Because usually they don't go hand in hand. So yeah, There's rarely is there a viable reason. And when I ask somebody, it's interesting, Byron, to ask somebody what exactly are you waiting for? And they come up with these benchmarks. Like I literally was talking to a guy maybe a month ago. He's like, dude, I'm waiting for rates to go back to 6% or under. And I was like, oh, okay, friend, when is that? Do you know when that's going to happen? Because I don't have a genie. Do you have a genie?
Yeah.
And so he's like, well, I don't know, man. And I said, well, also think about this. When rates are going down, typically prices go up.
Right,
so
right.
Okay, so you were waiting for rates to go down, but you're okay paying 15% higher than what you could have paid a year and a half ago, or maybe 3 years too. I mean, I got people that I know have waited 7+ years. They still haven't bought.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's the other thought too, Byron, is when people wait, they're waiting. Maybe they're not even waiting for financial fundamental reasons. They're waiting for life, and they think, not at this point in my life. I'm busy right now. I can't add this to it. Well,
right.
Your life, I don't know. I'm an old man. I'm an old wise man. I've yet to be in a situation where I could say my life isn't as busy this year as it was last year. And I'll be honest, I have 3 kids. I have a corporate job. I do stuff all the time. I'm as busy as I was now as I was 5 years ago, if you ask me. I'm probably busier now, even with Section 8 secrets. And guess what? I'm still buying, guys. I'm buying right now. I got my realtor literally texting and calling me as we speak. He just checked out a unit. And it doesn't stop. I mean, if you once you get in that game and you're off the sideline, you'll realize you realize I should have never waited, because it's just the money comes in and you look back year after year and you see what you've gained. And if you're waiting, you can't look back, right? There's nothing to look back at. You're just looking back at regret.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think it's a great point, Caggiano, is that people are often waiting to time the market or to time interest rates, and they shouldn't wait. Like you talk about your friends waiting 7 years. That's crazy. They're always sitting on the sidelines, and the timing will never be just right. So That's a great point. Now I'm curious too, Caggiano, after you bought that first property, what was next? How do you go from there? What happened?
Yeah, I'll be honest, right? I didn't have. I mean, perhaps now I look back and I like reversed engineered everything I've created, but you don't have to have everything figured out, guys. Either. I mean, for listeners out there, like you don't. You need to know what you're going to do today and maybe tomorrow, and understand where you're heading. But I didn't have a true game plan, Byron. I ended up. I knew I was going to rent it out. So what I did was when I moved out of Maine, which was I guess that was in '07. So I stayed in that condo for like a year and a half or two, and bought it in '05 of August, moved out in, I think it was October of 2007, and I rented it out. So I told my roommate, it was a good friend of mine, and said, hey man, I'm going to move out next month, just letting you know. And he's like, oh man, okay, well, whatever. He found his place. I was moving out, and I packed my car with everything it fit. Whatever didn't stayed in that condo, and I rented it out to 2 college girls. I talked to their dad. They did security and all that. And this was my first real experience of being a landlord, not living in it. And it went horrific. It was it was awful. And you were somewhat involved without disclosing everything. But yeah, we had an eviction going on shortly thereafter. And it was a mess. And that was my first like semi-legit eviction that we had to do about 3 months after they moved in. And I was vulnerable as heck, right? So I then listed my unit, and a really sweet woman reached out on the ad. And this predates any sort of application process, screening processes, standard operating procedures that I've now created, and guides that I have that I can leverage easily and find tenants like in no time. I could find really high quality tenants now. That predates all that. And I went with probably 80 to 90% of gut feeling, and then the 10% of my little rinky dink application where they filled out just the general basics. And it worked out, and she was Section 8. She had a housing choice voucher. She sounded super vulnerable. It was Christmas time. I'm like, let me see what I could do. And, let me look at this packet too. And it was a huge packet for me at that point. I'm like, this is like 22 pages of documents that I'm looking through. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing here, but I'm going to give it a shot. I looked it up. This is almost predates Google. I mean, this is how old I am, right? But I look it up. I'm like, what is the housing choice voucher program? What is Section 8? How does this all work? And it seemed like a really good cause. But every stigma that was out there, I read about, and they always are talking about how bad these tenants are. And I will speak to that later. But yeah, so I went through that process. It had to pass an inspection, and thankfully it did. Because if it didn't, I was probably not going to try again, and I was going to go private market again. I knew I wasn't going to sell it, but because also keep in mind, I bought during the worst time statistically. If you want to talk about timing the market, spoken as a true mortgage professional, I did not time anything effectively at all. If you really look back, and guess what? I won still. I was still winning on cash flow. I was still winning on appreciation a little bit, but it didn't matter because I wasn't selling. I definitely won on principal pay down and the tax leveraging abilities as well. The principal ideal there, I was able to leverage everything effectively except the A in ideal, appreciation. I didn't gain appreciation because I bought in '05 and the market started bottoming out in '08. And it really bottomed out, I guess, in 2012. So what I paid wasn't even what it was valued at 6 years later. It was undervalued.
So let's dive into appreciation for a second here. You talk about appreciation being one of the things that really helped you out. As you look forward in investing, do you always assume that there will be appreciation? And if so, how many years? I mean, do you tell people, hey, buy for 5 or 10 years to enjoy appreciation? Or what's your take on that?
Yeah, good question, Byron. I mean, what they typically say, rule of thumb is every 14 years, your property will double in value, which is pretty awesome when you think about crazy. That. That's just numbers and data. You can't really argue it. Go ahead, historically look at that and Google that, and any listeners. But yeah, every 14 years, you're going to double. So there's going to be ups and downs, though, to get to that double spot. But ultimately, yeah, I bake it in just to look at my forecasters and understand, like, hey, is this a good market? Because there's about, if you look at this, there's probably about 500 to 600 different housing markets in the United States.
Wow.
What do I? Yeah. That's just data that I've read, and meaning not every market is the same. So depending on where you're buying, so if you have the right approach and you have the right guidelines and principles that you're going to practice and measures in place, it's likely your values will likely never go down, barring some sort of, like we had like a pandemic or something like that. But clearly values only went down for a few months and then they soared. Yeah. So, but barring some sort of catastrophic event, if you've done your homework and you've done your research and you bought in the right areas, in the right markets, you likely can guarantee yourself some sort of appreciation, because they typically say real estate is just a hedge against inflation. So on average, you're looking anywhere between 2 and 4%, maybe even 5%. You're buying in the right areas on an annual appreciation amount. So I do have a forecaster tool. You could calculate that out and you could see where you're going to be at, and a really cool compounding real estate calculator that you could see where is it going to be in 5 years, where am I at equity wise, and where did I principal pay down? So now I could leverage that equity to cash out refi, because you can't cash out refi in an investment loan unless you have at least like 30 to 40% equity, because you can only cash out up to 75%. So you want to make sure you could at least get out 10, 15, 20% equity and still have 25% remaining in that loan.
Now, so Caggiano, let's just back for a second here. You're talking about there being 500 or 600 different markets across the United States, and you mentioned that you have some kind of tool. What's your process, your tool for filtering all these markets? How do you decide this location versus the other, 500? How do you do this? So when you're looking for properties, you want properties that don't have the big yard, the landscaping, all these problems. You want property that's simple, a property that's low maintenance, right? It sounds like.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. Yeah, you don't want you want to mitigate. It's essentially mitigating risk. It's a risk tolerance level, and you don't really think too much about it when you're buying your first 1 or 2 units. You just think, people buy single families. We hear the Burr method and different approaches to things that, there's syndication deals where people are buying a bunch of single family homes. And behind the scenes, though, there's property management companies and there's all sorts of other things going on that are eating away at your profits that you don't really know about if you're just you're a third party investor, or if you're hands on. And that's my model, because I want the investor to reap the 100% of the benefits. Then you want to mitigate your involvement in time. And that was the biggest thing for me, was the time. It wasn't necessarily, and it also is the money, the profit, but it really was the time I spent on my single families was off the charts compared to the 3 to 4 hours I spend on my 8 condo townhomes a month. All of them combined is maybe 3 to 4 hours, because I don't really worry about those time consuming repairs and issues that arise with a single family house.
And so talking about these 8 properties you currently own, how close are they to your house geographically? Like how close are they to where you live right now?
Yeah. So, not close. Most of them aren't close at all. 856 miles are the closest ones that I have in Maine. Wow. Yeah. So I have 6 up there, and then 2 down in Wake County here that are maybe 15 to 20 miles from me. But that doesn't mean I even go to them. I actually visited the one on a golf course for the first time in 7 years. My tenant was like, "Oh my God, I haven't seen you forever." And I needed to do a stop by to check the flooring, and we were going to upgrade some stuff. But I was like, wow, I think it has been like 7 years. It's crazy. I was like, wow. Last time I was there was like, it was like 2016. And I was like, that's crazy. And, anyway, she's still been my tenant and part of my model. I have really long-term tenants, but you don't. And when you buy HOA condo townhomes, there's not really a need. There's way less of a need to have to stop by. I'm not stopping by to meet a contractor, because there's really limited to no need for a contractor unless I'm doing some upgrades like I was doing on the inside. And when we talk about inside, compare the square footage difference. The average townhome condo is a little over 900 square feet, where the average average single family house is 2,300 square feet. Wow. So when you're talking about maintenance and talking about risk tolerance, I look at it from a risk perspective. The smaller the unit, the less the risk.
So if you're evaluating properties not on their size, not on their square footage, but by some other metric, you're saying like by bedroom count, or how do you decide what the right dimensions are for your property when you buy it?
Yeah, so I'll be honest though, the best property would be like a 3 or 4 bedroom with 1 bath and maybe 800 square feet. But those don't really exist. If they do, they're other investors know the value of it, so it's off the market in a heartbeat. Right. But ultimately it's beds and heads. It's number of bedrooms that really matter, and the quality that you offer inside for your client base. And that's what I really am keen on. Really high quality, durable, but not really things that are going to break down. So I talk about that too with single family homes. Let's go back on the inside now, where we're talking 3 to 4 times bigger than townhomes and condos. Right. But there's really a lot more to worry about too on a single family home on the inside. They typically have like palatial hallways, like this big cathedral ceilings, walk-in closets that are unneeded. A lot of them have basements. Well, I don't get more in rent for a basement for my model. So there are some other private market models that you might follow, but I'm strictly following what I've adopted and what I've created and my standard operating procedures are this model, which it's about renting to housing choice voucher people and people in need, affordable housing, helping cure affordable housing as best we can, one unit at a time. And I don't get more for a basement. I don't get more because it has its own septic. I mean, we don't want the septic, to be honest. I want public sewer. I don't get more for the walk-in closets, the bigger square footage. It's about bedrooms and the quality and the amenities surrounding your unit. So meaning school systems, grocery stores. That's why Class B neighborhoods really suit this well, because the government, not to get too in detail here, but the government targets 40th percentile and below for properties. So meaning if you fall in the 40th percentile, any given market, any given neighborhood, it's likely a number that will work for you as an investor to consider affordable housing as being a landlord and being your tenant.
And then Caggiano, I'm curious too, a lot of people look at Section 8, they think, hey, this is a big risk. I'm going to tenant who's going to trash my property. They're not going to pay the rent on time. To you as a landlord, what gives you peace of mind as far as the rental income, as far as the stability of that? I mean, is it even stable?
Yeah. So what it all comes down to is how do you screen? What are your screening principles? What do you do for an application process? And how are you following through with that? Right. So if you have those measures in place from the get-go, from day one, it won't make a difference whether you're renting to a private market. In fact, if it was a blind study done, you wouldn't know who you're interviewing, whether it's a housing choice voucher tenant holder or it's a private market person, because these are the same human beings. We're the same human. The only difference becomes their form of payment. Look at it that way. Like they pay, call it monopoly money. It's a housing choice voucher versus you are now no longer needing to collect cash from the individual in the private market. There's also a huge advantage too, because the government is paying. I keep track of this. So in my 17 years and about 16 years now being a housing choice voucher landlord, a little over 81% of my rents have been collected via direct deposit from the U.S. government.
Wow, that's crazy.
So yeah, less than 19% of my rents that I collect are from tenants. So meaning it comes on the first business day of every single month. Yep. And I can, if my tenants all stop paying, I'm still making a significant amount in profit just from 81% of my rents being paid, believe it or not, because the numbers in the FMR is very competitive, despite what the general public may think. Once you research it a little bit better, you're going to realize, for instance, a 2-bedroom in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, elicits $1,920 a month without utilities. If I included utilities, I'd get $2,240 a month. So yeah, you could look that up, any listeners, and just see what you can find there. Now, it's all about what's available to purchase and acquire, but yeah, the rents are very competitive if you buy in the 40th percentile and below. So you need to understand that too. So you can't take some palatial mansion and think, hey, I'm going to Section 8 it for a strong profit. You might get, and it might not be a bad idea, honestly. I mean, right now, my unit on the golf course in Raleigh, North Carolina, she overlooks the 15th green. She's got access to 2 swimming pools. I mean, you got to think too, these are sticky factors for turnovers too.
This sounds like a great unit. You've got a unit that's on a golf course that's being rented out for Section 8. Am I hearing this right?
2-car garage, 3-bedroom.
Wow.
This one is a little bit bigger. This was one that I lived in. Again, this is one of my 4 primary principal resident ones. Yeah. So when I first moved down here, I targeted a few areas and I rented for maybe 2 years. And then I bought on a golf course. I love golf. I still have that as a primary principal resident mortgage. Yeah. And now it's a Section 8 tenant. Now, at the time, it was only valued when I bought it at $120,000. I bought it in 2010. It goes back to not waiting. Because I bought it when the market was like almost at the best time to buy. Then I bought it in 2010. It bottomed out maybe a year and a half later. The market, you can look this up. The lowest point was like January 2012, I think. But point is, now it's 3 times the value. And I have a Section 8 tenant living there. She overlooks the 15th green. She could watch people putt. She's got access to 2 swimming pools, a basketball court, full gym. And these are sticky factors, though, for reducing your tenant turnover as well. So back to the HOA thing, it's like, yeah, there's a fee, but like keep in mind, it comes with a lot of different good things that help mitigate turnover, help mitigate cost, repair cost, help also mitigate issues with tenants. Because guess what? With the HOA comes rules, bylaws, and covenants that I love. Right. Why? Because like what I can do is I put them up on the fridge. I talk to my tenant before they move in. And guess what? When they're doing something in violation, it's not me, the big bad landlord, telling them you can't do it. It's me telling them, hey, the HOA's rules, unfortunately, Byron, you can't smoke in the unit or even outside the unit on the deck. It's not me, Byron. Sorry, man, but it is the HOA. So you're violating it. And they're reaching out to me, man. And there's going to be a fine. And typically my tenant will be, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Mike. I forgot about that. I'm going to stop immediately. Versus if it was private market and I didn't have an HOA, I shouldn't say private market, even if it was Section 8 and I didn't have an HOA and I was doing a single family house without an HOA and I made that call, they might refute me a little bit. They might have some rebuttals there and be like, man, what's the big deal? I'm smoking on the deck. I don't get over it, Mike. But versus, no, it's the HOA. It's Big Brother looking out and they're keeping an eye on it. So don't do it or you're going to be out of here. And they're like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm curious too, Caggiano, what is most rewarding to you as a Section 8 landlord? I feel like there's a stigma of, hey, I'm a slumlord, I'm renting out to Section 8, but it sounds like this is a really positive experience for you. Describe that for us, please.
Yeah, so I'll just, I won't name names, but I mean, I'll just give you one scenario of somebody. So I already talked about first of all, that tenant that was in Maine that moved in 2007 that I talked about, my first one still lives there. That unit's paid off. The government helped me pay that off. That unit that I bought was actually, Byron, this is a crazy story, right? You helped me buy that.
That's right.
So we bought that unit for $115,000. It's now valued at like $235,000.
Wow.
And it's paid off. And the government paid it off, for me. And while I was paying rents, right? That's so, crazy. But back to, I won't talk about her, but I'll talk about another tenant that is on the golf course, right? So she was a married woman with three kids, and her husband died in a tragic accident.
Wow.
And he was the breadwinner, and they applied they didn't know what to do. They were in really bad times. So she applied for the housing choice voucher. She waited 6 years in Wake County.
6 years.
Such a shortage, man, of landlords because of the stigma. And that's all it is a stigma. It's not reality. And when my unit became available, I knew I was going to do housing choice voucher because of maybe it's because I really had a good experience too, but I also understood the value there. Even my first tenant had a really good backstory of what got her in that predicament. So there's an intrinsic value of helping them out. So I felt really bad. Wow. I talked to them. I screened my tenant that I'm talking about now in the golf course unit really well. And she had a really good story. She was resilient. She was persevering in what I understood. She became bilingual. Because she didn't speak English. She did when she applied with me, but she had just learned it. And now she's fluent in English.
Wow.
She's fluent in Spanish. She has a pretty good paying job, long-term job that she's been doing, and in a really good person. So, there's nothing, the slumlord status itself too, it should have nothing to do with are you housing choice voucher landlord.
Okay.
It actually is I'll say this, it's a depiction. If a landlord out there or your friends call you a slumlord, it's probably a depiction on how you operate your business, because it's a business, your real estate business. And if you operate it in such a manner of which you're discriminating, you're not upkeeping, you have no asset management measures in place.
Sure.
You have no property management measures in place. You have really poor etiquette and behavior. You don't have standard operating procedures of collecting rents, of increasing rents, of having good discussions with your clients, your tenants. You're a slumlord. Listener, you're a slumlord then. Sorry. It has nothing to do with the clientele in your unit, though. It's you. It's you that you made yourself the slumlord.
So it sounds like, Caggiano, your goal as a landlord here is to provide a high quality of rental property, and it sounds like you really go above and beyond to take care of people and give them a really positive experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's putting it mildly, but yeah, they have an outstanding experience. They don't want to move. Yeah. I'll be honest, Byron. So I've had tenants that when I show them the unit, and I'm a huge fan of two things amongst other things, but two unique things here. When you're screening them, if you're able to do this, go look at where they live now. So when you screen it down to a few people that you're considering, and maybe just one, and that's my model gets you a finite answer.
Yeah.
Meet them for a cup of coffee. Ask them can I go look at your unit? They're gonna catch them off guard. You're gonna see how do they actually live?
Yeah.
How are they currently living? And I always try to meet for coffee or lunch, and I treat them. They're grateful for that, but I'm also asking them to bring paperwork. So it's not all for naught for me.
Right.
I need to see that. I want to see that, what they call a HAP contract. I need to see their housing application program payment contract, because I want to make sure it says, if they told me and they applied for a 2-bedroom, I want to see that it says a 2-bedroom voucher. And I also have a feel factor of 5% when I'm meeting them. So I'm also getting their paperwork, looking at that, and I'm getting a feel factor at the same time. And then I catch them off guard and I say, hey, Byron, can I see that you live like 2 miles away. You cool? If we go and take a look at that unit, that's a final step in my process that I'd like to look at that. But then we go look at that. And then they, let's assume it goes well. Or if it goes bad, I'll say, Byron, I appreciate all the time today. I'm going to get back to you in a day or two. I have a few other applicants as well. If it went good, though, I might say, hey, what do you think about going to look at the unit that you might be moving into? And of course, they want to see it. So I'll say, okay, great. Let's swing by and go take a quick look at it. And you could also leverage a realtor. And I talk about that in my training too. But what I ended up doing is, when you go and they go see that unit, if you are following the model and you're providing them, like we said, a high quality, very good Class B area neighborhood, tears happen. Tears and hugs. Tears and hugs. And that's crazy. 9 times out of 10, that's what's going to happen. They're going to say, holy cow, I can't believe this can become my unit. This is the unit. You're kidding me, Mike? Are you serious? And then other things I might send them. I work in a software company, so I've sent laptops, refurbished ones. I talk to IT. We donate laptops. So
Guys, welcome back to Matt Byron Show. I'm sorry about that. We had a technical glitch, but we are back at it. Caggiano and I were just having a rant a moment ago about these people who are on podcasts, on YouTube, and they claim to have 500 or 1,000 units, but they don't really own 500 or 1,000 units. Isn't that right, Caggiano?
Oh, I got you. Yeah. I mean, maybe some perhaps do. I don't go through a full technical analysis to validate, but what I find is oftentimes that gives them the authority by saying, hey, I own 400, 500 doors.
Yeah.
In these podcasts. Yeah, we were talking about that. And ultimately, if you start researching it a bit more, you realize they're just part of a big investment group. So there might be. Right, exactly. They might just be a limited partner, what they call an LP. Then there's general partners involved that are a little bit more significant. Then there's asset managers. There's a few attorneys typically involved. There's some CPAs involved if you get that big. There's property management involved. So what I was saying was, on the surface, someone that might say that, you would then think, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. He has 400 doors. He just said he has 400 doors. But no, when you dig a little deeper, you realize he's just giving his money. It's now it is different because it's real estate, but it's not a much different as far as the level of involvement as is putting money into your 401k. Yeah. That's how I felt. But yet they have this authority because they could say, yeah, I have 405 doors, but they don't really. And then it's ultimately, I bring it back a little further and find out what are the numbers and how much time is involved. And we could dial it back even smaller and just say, should I partner up with somebody or should I go at this alone? And that was really what sparked this discussion that I was having with a couple of buddies of mine. And one of the biggest things is you want to make sure you're philosophically aligned in your investment strategy, which isn't always easy. And then you also have to understand at the beginning, how are you going to end? Because there's going to be you're going to sell this out. You're going to do something at the end, and you want to make sure it's a happy ending and not this big nightmare of backstabbing and pissed off people and arguments and which could very well turn into that. And I have 2 friends that's their side of it. And
so diving into this a little bit, Cash, you're saying that some people, they claim to own hundreds of units, but in reality, they only own a small fraction of those units in a large portfolio. But your approach, it sounds like, is you personally own 100% of the units that you bought. You're not syndicating these. You're not buying them with other partners. You own them. And sounds like to me that the benefit to you is absolute control, and there's no finger pointing and no scapegoats, right? Am I correct in
that's one? Yeah. That's the way to really undersell the benefits. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits well beyond that. And one of the biggest ones is your time, because that's what I really look at. The biggest thing that's hard to put a number on is your time. And people don't really, oftentimes they undervalue time. But I look at it, I have a family, I have a family of 5. I got a corporate job. I'm not in real estate just for money. I'm in for long-term generational wealth. That it's not a get quick rich scheme or approach. It's going to take time, but I can see it being built over time really easy when I reflect back. And that primarily my procedures and my guidelines and my systematic way, but also it's because it's just me. I'm a sole proprietor in this, and I'm not sharing my profits and these gains that I'm having, but I'm also not biting off more than I can chew. Meaning if you were to work with partners and GPs and LPs, and, you know, I always say you could get friends and family involved too. You could get, you know, whatever, farm animals, and, you know, you get everything and throw it all at it and buy a bunch of units. But guess what? You probably bit off too much. And you're going to get stressed out. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to have to figure out systematic ways that you didn't figure out through time. And it isn't that much time, guys, to figure it out on your own. We're talking 3 to 5 years. You should have 3 to 5 units. And I have a really cool compounding calculator that shows you by the time you're at your 6th unit, you're now buying a unit from cash flow alone every 8 to 10 months from cash flow alone. And what I mean by buying a unit is you have enough in down payment money, $40,000 to $60,000 by that time in 8 to 10 months to keep buying it. And it just propels even more. And that's the compounding real estate section I talked about. Crazy. That's the power of compounding, right? Einstein says it's like the 6th wonder of the world, compound interest. That's right. Well, compound real estate's right there with it. Yeah, that's a wonder in itself too. And I have a really cool video on that, but it explains it. But you're reaping all the benefits. And I don't have 6 different people coming at me, calling me, texting me, emailing me, nickeling and diming expenses. Mike, how come you spent $210 on a house cleaner? I got somebody right here you could have used for $175. Well, holy, you know, Jimmy cracked for it. I don't care, because honestly, we're talking $40 over a house cleaning, and yet you're calling or texting me. The aggravation and the time it took me to read that text it's too much. It's too costly. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't really need a GP or an LP at this point in my life. And I'm not saying that could shift maybe further down and I could just become like a mentor and involved to that capacity. But when I want to really gain generational or just net worth, I want to see my net worth gain. Because here's the other thing too. Look at that scenario with that guy that has, let's just dumb it down to 30 units.
Yeah.
If he has 30 units and he has 10 people involved, that's essentially like me just owning 3 on my own. Right. But what about how much time and effort did you put forth in order to get to those 30 because you're just an LP involved, or you are the drink stirrer, so to speak, right? So they're all reaching out to you. You're doing all this legwork, and now you only really have equivalent to me having 3, of which I do very little. But furthermore to that, I have my own exit strategy. It's me. It's when I want. If I want to cash out refi, I can do that. I have liquidity. At any given point in time, I can liquidate something and move on, where these other investors need to buy into that philosophical approach to, oh, Mike wants to refi cash out because he sees another unit that's even better, that he's going to buy that one and then keep it on top of this. So there's all of these different factors. There's asset managers, property managers that all have to come into play because you've gone so big, so quick that you're overwhelmed and you're calling people, you're worried, you're stressed, you're concerned. Yeah, I really think the organic approach is the way to go. And it's in my best interest is to grow in a healthy manner instead of just this hyper growth.
And now, Caggiano, just wrapping up here, I love what you're saying about having absolute control over your property portfolio. I love your approach to this. It seems really wise. Just a moment ago, you were talking about like quality of life. And as we wrap up here, describe to us, what is your goal for quality of life? Is it to get super rich? Is it to become a billionaire, or is it to spend time with your family? And how does real estate help you get toward your goal?
Yeah, Byron, I think it's good for everybody to reflect on that type of question to better understand their own inner being and what is it that their end goal is. Yeah. Mine is freedom of time. It's really that. It has nothing to do with a dollar amount or a net worth amount. Now, so be it. That happens to grow into the millions, but that is just a counter product of the situation of what my end goal is, which is to have freedom of time. Now, freedom of time means money freedom. So freedom to do what I want, when I want, where I want, how I want, and not have to answer to 6 different people in a hierarchy of chain of command. In this case, in like my W-2 job. Well, is it okay for you to go take a vacation? Is it okay for you to go buy this and do that? And oftentimes you don't have that sort of freedom. And I can't really put a dollar amount or a net worth amount on that. Yeah. Ultimately, it is that freedom of time, which happens to be, money related though, because that money happens to free time up. And that's what I need. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm just about at, to the point where, my W-2 job, It doesn't have to surpass either. So a lot of investors, you might think on the surface, oh, as long as all my units can cash flow positive to equivalent what I'm earning. Well, you'd be surprised, because when you get to a point where that does almost happen, you realize like you don't need all that money coming in anyway. Because before, I wanted a bunch of money coming in because I'm trying to acquire properties and I'm doing all this other stuff. Well, as I aged, I realized I'm not doing as many big things, that I'm spending big ticket items. I already bought the big house, have the nice cars, have, upgraded whatever golf carts and, just, I don't know, just like communities that we have access to and stuff like that we pay HOA fees and dues for. Got all that set up. So we already paid the big ticket stuff. So now it's like almost like you get to this point where you don't need to be spending that much to have that freedom now because of real estate. It's not my W-2 job though, because W-2, it stops when you're not working. There goes your money.
Right. That's a key thing.
It keeps coming in and it keeps growing. And I talked about that to a friend of mine. I'm like, yeah. He's like, how much did you increase rents this year? I was like, I increased rents on average of my units by 12%, but my take home increased by 24%.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's a big difference. So I got a 24% raise in real estate rent cash flow this year alone. We're talking 1 year.
Sorry to interrupt. We do have to go in a second here because our camera is filled up on memory here. Caggiano, love what you're saying. Love having you on the show. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, go to section8secrets.com. Go to our website there. Check us out. We're on every social media channel as well. You go to LinkedIn. You can go to Instagram. You go to Facebook. But section8secrets.com. The number 8 in between the words section and secrets.
Awesome. Caggiano, thank you so much for being on the Matt Byron Show. We hope to have you again on our show soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.